weekly live book readings. This week, we're reading my debut novel, The Golden Trilogy, which is my Goldilocks retelling, and dang, I am so excited that you are joining me today. This came out in 2017, so a few years ago. It is the number 7 best-selling book on Amazon out of every book in existence. It's like super exciting. I actually had a company mention my book, and we had 22,000 downloads. No, that's the wrong number. 27,000 downloads in 2 hours of them mentioning it, and 33,000 downloads by the next day. This is a big fancy book, and I'm so excited to be reading it. Goldilocks was never naive. She was sent on a mission, y'all. And Dov Baer is her new target, and I, for one, am very excited to read this with you. It's been a while since I've read this one live out loud to you, and we're going to be jumping in and reading it today. So here's what you need to know about Goldilocks was never naive. She was sent on a mission, and Dov Baer is her new target. When Auluria tricks the Baers into letting her into their home, they have no idea she's actually been sent to the enemy, or sent by the enemy to destroy them. Intent on gathering information for her cousin to hand over to the society seeking to destroy all the rebel factions, including her own, she's willing to sacrifice Dov Baer to save her people, until she realizes her cousin lied to her. Now that she's seen who Dov truly is, she has to decide between staying loyal to her only remaining family or protecting the man she's falling for. If her allegiances are discovered, either side could destroy her, assuming that the society doesn't get her first. So we are going to be jumping in and reading this today. I'm super excited that you're joining me. Let me know if you have read the Golden Trilogy or not, and just how much you love fairy tale retellings. And today we're going to read this one together. So I am going to be using my blue light blocking glasses so I don't burn my eyes out while we are doing this. Please go ahead and leave some comments and questions while we're live streaming. I would love to get those answered when we're done reading. And as well as typing in the chat box here on YouTube, please also leave a comment on the video because those are ranked differently in the system. So go ahead and leave comments in both. If you want me to see them while we're on air in the chat box, and then leave some love in the actual comments down below after. And if you're on Facebook, hey, leave me some comment love. All right, guys, let's pull this up and let's go ahead and do this. Now, I do want to point out with the Golden Trilogy, we have really cool chapter headers. These are the coolest things ever. They were designed by my artist, Millennium Genesis, and these are hidden pictures. You can actually find, I want to say it was like 27-ish different items are hidden in this particular golden header, and each of the books in the series, we're talking all 3 novels, the prequel novella, and the bonus prequel novella inside of the omnibus, all have different chapter headers with hidden things inside of them. And as you're reading the book, the elements that are hidden inside of the chapter headers will be part of the story. So everything here is important. Right off the bat, I'm seeing the wolf head, I'm seeing the bear claw, I'm seeing the bird, I'm seeing the needle, I'm seeing some of the fiery things. So as you're reading, you can find those and discover where they are inside of the chapter headers. So everything inside of the Golden Trilogy is the same chapter header. It's not different, each different chapter. So it's just one for the book. But then the next book has a different one. The next book has a different one, so on and so forth. And you can actually kind of like play along and see if you can spot them all on there. And if you want a good close look at the chapter headers, you can head over to the World Portal on my website for Golden to get a good look at those. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm super excited that you guys are here and that you're hanging out. Oh, thank you guys. Okay, we're going to talk about all those things when we get done with our reading, but I do want to read for you, so I actually have to find where that is on my page. Please note, I haven't read this one in a while, so if I stumble over my words, it's a cold reading. Let's go ahead and let's do this. The first thing I smelled was sweet spices. A wave of warmth washed over me, coaxing me out of my sleep. Someone was breathing on me. When I opened my eyes, all I saw was blue. Blue so deep and so intense I had to blink to bring it back into focus. Dark fringe fell over the blue color as it sparked and flashed, awakening me fully. Those were eyes, the most brilliant blue eyes I'd ever seen. Then it hit me, and I panicked. "Who are you?" I snapped, sitting up so quickly I nearly collided with the boy next to me. No, not a boy, a man. I clutched at my collar and backed away from the figure next to me. His face fell as I scrambled away. He reached for me, but not in time to save me from falling off the far side of the small bed and landing squarely on the ground. My flailing hand slammed into the small table near the cot and sent its contents crashing to the floor beside me. "Auluria, stop." Blue Eyes said. How do you know my name? I sputtered. You don't remember? He asked, concerned. He stepped quickly around the bed and stood at the foot of it, unsure if I'd accept his help. He reached out his hand but pulled it back, looking disappointed as I recoiled. Are you all right? He asked gently. He knelt to the floor submissively, trying to soothe my terror. I looked around. I had made a mess, but I hadn't broken anything. Still, I was confused. I had no idea what was going on. Who are you? I asked again, softer this time. I'm Dov. He placed his hand over his heart as he spoke. You know me. Breathing heavily, I tried to calm my gasping. Why am I here? You came here. You came with me. You don't remember? No, I didn't remember anything about him. We only just met yesterday. You've had quite an experience, he spoke softly to me, as if trying to calm a child. It's okay that you don't remember. You will. He couldn't have been much older than me, maybe a year or two. The man was tall when he was standing. I could tell. No, oh my goodness, guys, cold reading. Sorry. The man was tall when he was standing. I could tell from even down here on the floor. He had long, strong arms. Something about the way he brushed the hair back out of his eyes set me at ease. I started to stand and he rose with me. He never took his eyes off me. And just how did we meet, Dov? Come, sit down and I'll tell you. Would you like something to drink? Water, perhaps? I slowly made my way to the table at the far end of the room. I started to sink into one of the mismatched chairs. Actually, maybe not that one, Dov said, skirting around me and pulling out another chair. This one is much more comfortable. I obliged, though I didn't know why. Here, he said, handing me a glass of cool water. Are you hungry? I can make you something. Without waiting for me to respond, he walked over and started the stove. He reached for a pan and busied himself making food. So why am I here? I prompted after a few minutes of watching him cook. Once I was convinced he wasn't going to hurt me, I relaxed back into the seat and watched him work. It calmed my nerves to see him methodically creating breakfast. You are here, Auluria, for a great many reasons, he said dramatically, his grin making his eyes sparkle again, one of which happens to be the door flew open, interrupting him. I jumped as it crashed against the wall. Turning to look at the noise, I sent my chair cascade. No, that's not right. As I turned to look at the noise, I sent my hair cascading over the back of my chair and around to my shoulder, where it hit me in the face before falling into my lap, which I have real life done. Well, look who's up, a woman said, scoffing. Sleeping Beauty. I can't believe you brought her back here, Dov. She's nothing but trouble, the man said. He was an older, darker version of Dov. He seemed to be plagued by something heavy. Even his steps were weighted as he moved around the room as if dragged down by some invisible chain. Are you hungry? Dov asked, ignoring their comments. I watched as the woman glanced around the room. Her eyes fell on the bed. Its sheets were tangled from my fall. The man followed her gaze. They both cast Dov a look, raising their eyebrows at him. No one said anything. Suddenly, I was extremely self-conscious. Well, well, baby brother, looks like you have a story to tell, the man howled with laughter. My cheeks burned and I ducked my head. Enough, Berwin, the woman said quietly. She looked aside as he cast her a disparaging glance. Auluria doesn't remember us. Dov sounded annoyed. Oh, but we remember her, Berwin said, making it sound like a bad thing. I couldn't figure out what I had done to these people to make them so vicious toward me. Well, not all of them, but it was clear that the man and the woman were not pleased to find me there. I thought we told you to get rid of her, he said seriously, making my stomach jump into my throat. He slammed a fist against the table and Dov ducked as if he had been hit. I won't, and you know why. She won't hurt us. She's more likely to help us than anything else. Let her stay, Berwin. I think it would be nice to have another girl around. And besides, Dov's been alone for so long, it's nice that he has someone. I couldn't tell if she was being helpful or mocking. It is kind of a pain that he is always a third wheel, I guess, the big man relented. See, I knew it would work out, the woman said, her mid-length blonde curls bouncing as she strode toward him. I opened my mouth to speak, but Dov caught my attention and signaled to me to stay quiet with a quick shake of his head. Come on, the man finally said, leading the woman away. I looked back to the stove where Dov was, but he was already at my side, setting down a plate. That's my brother Berwin and his wife Eden, he said matter-of-factly. They're married? I said, shocked. He can't be more than 25. 24, actually. How old is she? Eden's 23. Do you want more water? Dov, why am I here? I asked again, trying to get him to focus. I needed answers. Do you remember being in the forest yesterday? He asked me. I shook my head. Well, I don't know why you were in the woods, but that's where I met you. You were running through the forest and you jumped over a small stream. I saw you flying through the air and thought, what must this crazy girl be doing to be running so quickly through such a dense part of the forest. When you landed, you took 3 whole steps before you came face to face with me. I'd never seen a more panicked look in my life. You clutched your skirts in your hand and you whipped your head from side to side. I'd never seen such long hair on a girl. When it finally settled, it was past your waist. He said it as if I didn't know how long my hair already was. And when you looked back at me, you whispered help. I could see in your eyes that you were in trouble. He said this with such grandeur, illustrating his story with his hands. So I took you by the waist and spun you into the trees. We ducked behind some large rocks and hid among the vines. You were breathing so loudly, I thought you were going to give us away. I wondered how the story would sound if he dropped his dramatic tone. I assumed he was using it to try to keep me engaged. What was I running from? I interrupted. Men. There were men chasing you. You refused to tell me why. He grinned as if it were all a game. I was in no mood for games. Once the first group of men chasing you... Oh my goodness, you guys. I'm so sorry. Once the first group of men chasing you was gone, you started off again, barely throwing a thank you over your shoulders. But I couldn't let you go alone, not after what I had seen, so I walked with you. I hoped he would get to the point... It's been a long day. I'm sorry, guys. So many recordings and live streams. I hoped he would get to the point, but he had more to describe in detail. You only tolerated me for so long until you started throwing things at me. An apple, a tree branch, some small pebbles. I admit, it hurt my feelings a bit. He frowned playfully, but his eyes sparked to life under his dark hair. But persist I did, and I followed you for the better part of an hour, talking at you the whole time. That is, until I was attacked. In my blind disregard for my own safety, he waved his hand to the side as if I should be impressed. I hadn't realized where we had wandered. I was taken completely by surprise when those guys jumped out of the trees and landed on top of me. Oh, you already love Auluria. Me too. He laughed, his eyes lighting up. But you, for as surprised as you were, ran at us and tackled Jake to the ground. He hit the dirt so hard that it knocked the wind right out of him. I'm sure he couldn't have ever believed a girl would have ever considered dating him, much less throwing herself at him like you did. I felt my eyes grow wide as his teasing... Oh, man, y'all. It's a good thing when I record, the audiobooks of these, I can actually read these before I say things. I felt my eyes growing wide at his teasing words. He was only joking, a play on words, but still, I would never throw myself at a man in that context. It vexed me that he would insinuate that I might. Once I took out Marty, we found ourselves in the clear. That didn't stop us from trying to make a fast getaway, though. We almost made it, too, but somehow Jake struggled to his feet and he went after you. Just as I subdued Marty and placed him on the ground, I lifted my head and saw Jake barreling toward you. I couldn't make it to you in time. The sound it made when he hit you was almost as if I could feel it from as far away as I was. He offered me a sad look, his eyes clouding. If it's any consolation, I slammed his face into a tree and messed it up pretty bad. You insisted that you were fine, but you could barely stand. I scooped you up and carried you. We walked all the way back here. Well, mostly I did. I refrained from rolling my eyes. Of course, he had been the talkative one. Oh, wow, because, I wrote this. Of course he had been the talkative one. You told me your name, and then you asked a few questions before deciding to stay quiet. So, as of right now, all I know is that your name is Auluria. You have long hair, you're running from something, and you're being chased. And you're looking for a place to belong, though I added that last part on my own. He counted his points off on his fingers for me as he summarized what had occurred yesterday. And what did you tell me about yourself? Well, as you know, my name is Dov Baer. Oh no, because actually we need to learn how to read punctuation. Well, as you know, my name is Dov. Baer is my last name. You've met my brother and his wife yesterday briefly and again today. As you can see, my brother doesn't trust you, but don't take offense, he doesn't trust anyone. You can't really blame him with all that's going on, he continued. It's hard to trust anyone these days, I suppose. I looked down to my dress, covered with dirt and mud at the bottom. There were a few small holes that I assumed occurred during my fall. That's when I remembered. I had been running. I just couldn't remember why. I remembered meeting him, though. As the men gained on me, I leapt over a river almost directly into Dov's arms. He hid me until the men passed. I never told him of the danger I must have surely been in, and he was in for being with me. You remember? Dov's voice changed, snapping back to the conversation. I remember, I nodded. Thank you for your help yesterday. Anything for a pretty lady. He half bowed to me from his seat next to mine. Now tell me, Auluria, why were you running from those men yesterday? He grew serious again, wanting more information from me. They were chasing me, I said simply. He chuckled. But why? I swallowed hard. I don't know. You don't remember? He picks up from where I ran into you. His eyes narrow intently, but soft enough to know that he was concerned, not angry. Where do you belong, Auluria? We have to get you back to where it's safe. He took my hand in his own hands and the gesture so sudden that it shocked me into stillness. I let him hold my hand in his while okay, y'all, I'm sorry. Today is a very rough day. We might need to do this again sometime. I let him hold my hand in his while his eyes searched me for answers. I don't belong anywhere. That was the truth. I never belonged there. And do you really think going back is safe, since that's where I was coming from in the first place? Little flashes of memory floated through my mind, not enough to blend together and form a picture, but pieces all the same. You will tell me eventually, Auluria, he said, withdrawing his hand. He looked genuinely hurt that I wouldn't divulge any new information. I didn't like that he thought I knew more than I was saying. You can stay here until you're ready, he added quietly, almost to himself. I looked at him as if he read my mind. You'll be safe here. I'm sorry, guys. You'll be safe here. They won't find you and Burn won't hurt you. I'll make sure of it. That thought scared me. If this man was telling me I'd be safe from his brother, then what was so bad about his brother that made it potentially unsafe? Finished? He interrupted my thoughts. Lifting my plate, I turned back to the sink. I watched as he washed the dishes, his shoulders rising and falling as he worked. His muscles looked stiff at times, seizing with pain. My gaze lingered on them as he worked. I watched his chest expand and shrink as he breathed. When he turned, it startled me. Dov only raised an eyebrow and smirked. He nodded his head for me to join him in the makeshift living room, walking away from the kitchen. Just as we started to sit, I blurted out, What did you mean, protect me from Berwin? Oh, I see you don't remember all of yesterday after your rescue, he added apologetically. Berwin is just a lot to handle sometimes. Sometimes he gets a little too upset. At times he says or does things without thinking. It's nothing to worry about. He won't hurt you. He's just loud sometimes. As if emphasizing his brother's points, at that very moment Berwin crashed into the room and slammed the door behind him. He glared at us before stomping through the kitchen and marching out the door. Eden appeared, rolling her eyes. She looked over to her young brother-in-law and gestured around the room. Baby, you need to get this taken care of. She turned on her heels and retreated the way she came. I looked to Dov. Baby, I giggled. Oh, be quiet, he said, throwing a pillow at me as he stood, carefully avoiding my face. Let me help you, I responded, rising to follow him, knowing that I owed him for his help the day before. We started cleaning up the mess around the room. Bottles lay strewn around the floor. Unfolded laundry sat in piles on a chair. It looked like there had been a celebration that someone forgot to clean up after. How's your head feeling? He asked as we worked. It's okay, I said, feeling more secure about being alone with him. What happened in here anyway? Berwin and Eden had a fight yesterday. It's best to get out of the house when that happens. He stooped? Yes, that is a word. He stooped to sweep up pieces of broken glass. They never hurt each other, but they sure do know how to make it sound good. Was it about me? I asked. It started out about you, but most of this is from after. I helped him straighten the room. His eyes flitted over to me every so often, making sure I wasn't going to pass out from my injury the previous day. The quiet that stretched between us was almost comforting. I've always liked the silence. It means that you're comfortable enough with the person that you don't feel the need to fill up the space with words. You can just exist together. Almost there, guys, almost there. Berwin and Eden didn't make another appearance until that evening. Dov had suggested I take a nap to help regain my strength, so after lunch I lay on the couch under a light blanket. It really was too warm for a blanket, but I liked the protection it offered me. I never truly drifted off to sleep. While I felt safe in the house, I knew I didn't really know these people very well, and I didn't want to trust them too quickly. She's still here, Berwin grumbled. I told you we're not sending her back out there. She's being hunted and she can't remember by whom or why. We have to protect her. Stop it, Berwin, Eden interrupted before he could say anything. I don't like it either, but he's right. We're not sending her back out there until we have some answers. Your father started this whole thing to help people, so you need to help people and start with her. I heard the edge in her voice when she was talking about me. Maybe she hadn't been sincere about letting me stay. Fine, he huffed, for now. I kept my eyes closed, feigning sleep, and waited for them to leave. I heard their steps creak across the floorboards as they walked out of the room. A moment later, I felt the couch arm dip slightly as someone leaned onto it. You heard that, didn't you? His gentle voice asked. I opened my eyes. Yeah, I acknowledged. He took a deep breath and sighed. At least he's letting you stay. For now, I added. For now, he said, worry slightly edging into his voice. That probably wasn't their best choice. And then we're on to chapter 2. Okay. So thank you for bearing with me through my reading today. It was a little rough today, worse than we usually do, so I appreciate y'all sticking with me. If you have questions about the story, now's a great time to go ahead and drop those, and I do want to let you know a couple of fun things about this story. This is a story I've wanted to tell for a very, very, very long time. Now, when I started writing, it was not with the intent of becoming an author, but I knew the second I started writing stories, this was one I wanted to tell. And it took me a while to figure out the angle, because I always loved the Goldilocks story. Back in the day, I had what was gold hair. I don't get out in the sun anymore, so my hair is a lot darker than it was when I was a kid and I would play outside. But I had actual golden hair. And I hated that people always portrayed Goldilocks with white blonde hair. Hated it, because that was not legit. Gold hair was like mine, and if you go into any hair dye place in like a Walmart or a Target and match the hair colors, mine was what was actual gold. So I wanted to correct her story. I also hated the idea that a girl would just wander into a house, set up shop, and then run away when people showed up. So I wanted to give her a reason for being there. So I thought for a good long time, what could I do to tell her real story? Why was she actually there? And then I figured out she was sent on a mission. Then I figured out her cousin sent her on a mission, and she does now have to decide between protecting the Baer family and her only remaining relative, her cousin, who sent her there to destroy them. She has to play both sides. And this is a story where we do get a relationship very early on in the story. It is not quite insta-love, but it is like we like each other very strongly right away. And then I immediately rip them apart. So please be aware that even though we have very swoony things, they do get ripped apart and have to fight to get back together. There is some torture inside of this story. If you don't like it, you can skip that section. It's a couple pages long, and I do reiterate some of the main points from it later on, so you'll get the gist of it without having to read some of the graphic-y stuff. But we do get some torture in here. They are ripped apart. We do have some big, major emotional things. It is a very strong emotional roller coaster. So you're going to have a lot of peaks and valleys in this one. And people do like to come and yell at me for the mean things that I do inside of this story and this series. This is the number 7 best-selling book on Amazon out of every book in existence. Yay! We did have a big company mention this. Sorry, they mentioned this book. I'm seeing the comments come in. They mentioned this book, and within 2 hours of them mentioning it, I had 27,000 downloads, and by the next day, I had 33,000 downloads of this book. So lots of people have read this. We've had some great best-selling and award-winning authors give quotes for this story. This is a really fun one. This was my debut novel. It was my first book to come out. 3 months later, the Jaded Duology right there came out, so I call them my debut twins, but this is so much fun. This is a very dystopian take on this. They have to survive the society. They have to survive the rebel factions that are kind of at war with each other. There's quite a few things going on, and we have the swooniest book boyfriend ever in Dov Baer. You can see them on screen here. We've got my Goldilocks and my baby bear. And it is just such a fun story. And I'm glad that you guys are loving this and the angle of it too. I love doing those like deep dramatic angles to my retellings. You know, Cinderella Assassin, all those fun, fabulous things. Hacker Little Miss Muffet. We've got Spy and Rebel Goldilocks. I absolutely love it. And I love that you guys are here reading with me. We are going live every single week at 11 a.m. here on YouTube and on Facebook to live read the first chapter of one of my books or one of my friends' books. So we are kind of getting toward the end of my first books in my series. In fact, I'm not even sure which ones I still have to read to you guys. So if you can think of one you want me to read, go ahead and let me know. Then at some point, we will be transitioning and reading some of my friends' books as well so that you guys can get to know new stories and get to check out new characters and all those fun things. But we do this every single week at 11 a.m. Eastern, so set your alarm so you can come and join us. Later today, we will be designing a book cover live on air. That is 3 p.m. Eastern. I hope you will come and hang out for that as well. And give me your recommendations for which books I should be reading in the next couple of weeks for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate y'all being here. Go check out the World Portal for Golden over on my website. And I may or may not have some big Golden news coming in the very near future. So pay attention to my socials, because if you're a fan of this, you want to hear about I think there's 3 big announcements related to Golden coming very, very soon. Thank you all for hanging out. I will see you next week as we do our live readings, and of course for all of our live streams on Instagram, on TikTok, here on YouTube, and on Facebook throughout the rest of the week. I will see you very, very soon. Until then, have a great day.